Question number 1 to the Leader, please.
Mr. Mayor, I thank Councillor Osborne for his question. As far as 2015 is concerned, I can be pretty certain that this council will not be seeking to set a council tax at a level that requires us to go for a referendum. As for 2016, it's a difficult thing to promise on because we don't know what the situation might be, and nobody would expect me to answer before I know what the scale of the difficulties we might have. However, we would want to make sure that we protect our most vulnerable residents from any further tax increases. I thank Councillor Osborne for his supplementary. The one thing I'm not is Mystic Meg, so I can't really answer that.
Councillor Osborne.
Question 2 to the Leader, please.
I thank Councillor Osborne for his second question. This won't be the first time Councillor Osborne is mistaken about the situation. As far as the Hague Group advice was concerned, it's an independent body which we did ask to give us advice on the matter, and their advice was sought and we took it. And therefore, you would see, as the answer says, that the Chief Executive's pay was reduced based on that advice, and the rest was explained at the appropriate meeting of the General Purposes Committee. What this Council has consistently believed in is in attracting and retaining the best qualified staff who are capable of delivering this Council's agenda. In return, officers have loyally served this Council over very many years and produced the kind of services of which our residents are proud. I don't intend to change that winning format.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you. All right. Put all the technicalities aside, even if you take into account the reductions, if you add in pension payments, will the Leader just say to us this evening, £250,000, is he saying to the people of this borough and to this council that that is the going rate for the job?
Like all things in life, it depends on what the job is.
Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if the Leader would also just remind members that we've been very conscious of the significant reduction in the number of positions in the Hay band, the number of our chief officers, and therefore the overall reduction in the salary bill that is therefore associated with that when we've been looking at this review of terms and conditions.
I thank Councillor Dawson for his supplement. And of course, Councillor Dawson puts his finger on the right way of dealing with staff pay. And this Council has, in the past and in this current administration, done exactly that. Reduced numbers of high-paid staff, merged departments, and increased workloads and responsibilities without necessarily sapping the will and the commitment of our wonderful staff. That is the way to go, rather than simply taking an ad hoc decision of saying somebody's paid too much, let's cut their pay.
Question 3, Councillor Sutters.
Question number 3 to the Leader on behalf of Councillor Carr.
I thank Councillor Sutters for the question, because this is interesting, and I'm sure there's been an awful lot of column inches written about that famous speech where bits were missing, and yet, of course, the idea of a mention tax was born. The idea of a mention tax was born, but it hasn't been thought through. How would it be levied? How would properties be identified, valued, and so on, and what the impact of that particular identification be for the properties below this price, and how one would be able to challenge, appeal, and so on. These are all tricky questions, and nobody has bothered to ask. But in case of Wandsworth, we have, relying on this evidence published by Zoopla, got approximately 4,900 properties which, if the owners of which, if they paid the tax, would be paying equivalent of what we get from everyone else for the year. It just seems to be a pernicious tax, and exactly so, because Glenda Jackson's quote is in the answer, but not only that, everyone aspiring to be London Mayor, although I'm not sure former Councillor Khan is one of them, but everyone aspiring to be London Mayor on the Labour side have distanced themselves from it, because this is essentially a tax on somebody having made a decision many, many years ago, and their properties have changed. So in a sense, good fortune and good luck. It's a tax against good fortune and good luck. It's a tax against success, where somebody has been successful and has invested their success in a property. This is not a tax that is meant to actually answer any of our woes. And a further point is that having selected a £2 million threshold on the valuation and hypothecated it for an NHS spending, where we know the budgets are very much under pressure and possibly very difficult to control, how long before 2 million becomes 1.8 and 1.8 becomes 1.5, and it'd soon be £1 million houses getting a tax? And I think that's what residents of Wandsworth need to be worried about.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask the leader whether he agrees with me that the lack of detail, which starts at 2 million and could move lower, has actually disturbed many residents in Wandsworth who are asset-rich, cash-poor, and has he realised that actually we have more houses coming onto the market?
I thank Councillor Sutters for the question. I mean, she's absolutely right. This is a kind of announcement, ill-thought, under-researched, which has worried many, many people. The other day I was at a meeting where we were talking about risk assessment about regeneration in Nine Elms. And I said, you know, the mention tax proposals, if they were to come to pass, that would increase the risk of delivery of some of those projects where valuations are made on the basis of no mention tax, and if mention tax was levied, the valuations would change and some of the developments would be stalled. I have to say, my opposite number from Lambeth thought I was making a party political point. I was genuinely making a point of anxiety about delivery of a regeneration project slightly stymied by this kind of ill-thought announcements.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Belton.
Whilst understanding, of course, the leader's bound to have a go at mansion tax, especially given the response, as he says, of certain Labour MPs, does he think there's nothing wrong at all with this taxation that we have on property in this country, the one that we inherit from the Tory party? Does he think it's absolutely right that the council banned H tax prices at relatively low values are the same as houses in Millionaires Row in Highgate? Has he got an alternative to do something to make a reasonable property tax, a reasonable and fairer property tax than exists at present?
I thank Councillor Belton for his supplement. And I'll be honest, I mean, I think it is fair to say that the bans that were introduced such a long time and not having been ever revalued again does create a problem, and it poses a challenge for not only this council but many other councils where things have moved on. But I am not going to give you my answer to what should be the solution, because unlike Mr. Miliband, I'm not going to rise and at the back of an envelope come up with a scheme which is, well, it isn't so, Mr. Councillor Belton. It is about actually making an announcement that is well researched and has got some basis in being able to deliver. And I just say that if somebody 40 years ago were to have bought a house just off Northcote Road for a relatively modest amount to today's prices, is sitting on an incredible revalued property. Now, to suggest that they have in any way actually become super wealthy because luck has come their way is complete nonsense.
Councillor Thomas.
Question number 4 to the leader.
I thank Councillor Thomas for his question, and I think he will judge from the answer that this is a situation which has sort of run away before it actually had started to, or had a need to run away. There was a dialogue with this council but hadn't been concluded, and in the meantime there has been a humongous petition with signatories from as far away as Sydney and California. There is a solution here, and the solution will emerge after a diligent dialogue where there are some obvious and correct things we need to sort out, but I'm sure we can find a solution.
Supplementary. I thank the leader for his answer. As I'm sure he is aware, Parkrun is run by volunteers. It doesn't charge participants to participate, and therefore, as such, it's not in a position to pay money by way of a charge to the council. Can the leader of the council confirm that he won't let anything stand in the way of this borough getting a parkrun, which would be a great asset? And in particular, can he specifically confirm that in this case he would be willing to waive the council's normal charging policy in order to facilitate that outcome?
I thank Councillor Thomas for his question, and my earlier answer I would have thought would have found favour with him. Now he presses me, but let me then be honest. I think we will need to learn how other boroughs have dealt with similar requests and what solutions they have come up with, because we are not the only borough that has a charging policy. I think we need to examine not that they have resources to pay, but whether they have ability to steward and help with the rubbish collection that inevitably could follow, and what are the potential conflicts between other normal park users and a parkrun. Now, there may be none, but I think until we have had that kind of dialogue, we cannot establish the solution. What this council is willing to do is actually sit down together and find a solution that works for all of us.
Councillor Murden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask the leader, in light of today's publication of the London Health Commission report, and I don't intend to talk about smoking in parks, even by people who are running in parks, can you confirm that we will be doing everything we can to improve the health of all residents in the borough?
I thank Councillor Madden for his supplement. Well, answer is obviously yes. I mean, I hardly say no, but let me just also be realistic about Lord Darcy's report. I understand it costs £4 million to produce. I haven't read it, but I hope it is worth it, and I'm sure the Mayor will want to implement any of those proposals that actually can be implemented. What is also interesting to perhaps join with Councillor Thomas's kind of questions is what happens if there are lots of people running and in the entrance to the park there are also lots of people waiting, finishing their cigarettes as the runners arrive? I mean, there are obvious conflicts to avoid.
Councillor Peterkin, question 5.
Question number 5 to the leader, Mr. Mayor.
I thank Councillor Peterkin for his question. I have to say, in many ways, this is perhaps one of the most important questions and most important issues facing local governments across the land. There are some obvious things. I mean, local government in these difficult times has performed far, far better than any other form of public administration, including government departments. Most local authorities across the land, there are some exceptions of course, most local authorities across the land have far better management and governance outcomes. There was a time when there were byword for bad administration. They are not any longer. They have earned the trust and deserve to be trusted, and I think it is time that all parties, talk about better empowering local authorities to deliver the kind of services for its residents. I hope that that outcome will not lead to giving tax-raising powers without any controls on them, because that way lies problems, because we've been there before. I hope that it does allow the local authorities to retain individuality and make their own choices rather than come with a statutory construct, which I can understand the kind of combined authority model seems to find favour with a lot of, certainly a couple of days ago, various London leaders thought that was the way ahead. It isn't, in my view, because as a statutory construct, it has its limitation and its restrictions. I'd much rather live in a world where we choose our friends and we work with our friends to the mutual advantage of each other, rather than to be forced or dragooned into something that may not work, and when it doesn't work, the escape route is another act of Parliament, which isn't that easy to come by.
Councillor Pittacon.
The Leader may or may not be aware that at present London retains just 8% of the taxes that are raised in London. By contrast, that figure in respect of New York City is more than 50%. Does the Leader agree with me that the way to ensure that London remains the greatest city in the world is for government to offer more scope to London to run its own affairs in key areas such as housing, skills and employment?
I thank Councillor Peterkin for his supplement. Absolutely right. I mean, the excellent work done by the London Finance Commission, led by Mayor Johnson, shows exactly where London lags behind. Virtually every world city has far more freedoms and has a far better, bigger tax take off the taxes it raises than London. And of course, the idea that this world city should be run on the basis of buying favors or begging favors from government in order to invest to make this city run is not the way to go forward. The city faces huge challenges. We are on the cusp of getting to a 10 million population. Now, you cannot accommodate, you cannot look after, you cannot employ and find education opportunities for that kind of number of people on a 7%, 8% tax take without having to beg and borrow all the time. It's far better to empower and give London the freedom. What I would say to the Mayor, and as many of the London leaders have regularly said to the Mayor, is that it isn't up for him to take the money and keep it. It is for actually the boroughs to share in this devolution of extra tax income, because after all, boroughs are at the coalface of delivering many of the services our residents need.
Yes, Councillor Osborne.
I agree with the Leader. This is a very important question, and I note in the answer his scepticism about the combined authority structure. Can I ask him, given our membership of Central London Forward at the moment, and the fact that the combined authority structure, although not yet possible in London, is nevertheless gaining increased popularity amongst boroughs of every political hue at the moment, if Central London Forward, or some permutation of it, does go and opt for a combined authority structure, sovereign but combined authorities, what will Wandsworth do? Will we go along with it, or will we pull out?
Thank Councillor Osborne for that question. I think he's wrong to say that all London leaders across all political divides embrace the combined authority model. He's wrong, because in fact earlier this week there was a meeting of London leaders where that kind of unanimity was not evident. Let's look at Central London Forward. This is an organisation of which we were not a founding member. We asked to join, they invited us to join. There was a kind of a mutual ask and a mutual welcome. We did it on terms which, you know, they and we could agree on. We could leave it tomorrow if it does no longer suits our purpose, as in fact we have done with South London, partnership of which we were a member. That kind of freedom, the sovereignty of a local authority to make its own decisions to the best advantage of its people is the right way to go forward. If it means joining groups, and that is advantageous to our residents, yes, we would do it. My reservations, and a very serious reservations about combined authorities model is, as always, it will be a statute passed in Parliament which will be torn apart and teased and whatever by others and given to us to follow and observe. And if it doesn't, if it doesn't suit our purposes, we have no way of escaping. And if you're once in something, because you're part of a statutory body, you can't leave. I mean, there are colleagues here who know that they represent this Council on Statutory Bodies, where people may want to leave, but they cannot leave because they are locked into an arrangement which Parliament has created. Lee Valley Authority is an example that members know about. We cannot escape because Parliament says, ye shall be a member and ye shall pay into it, whether you get something out of it or not. Freedom of choice is what I want. I'm not against cooperation, and I'm not against working with others.
The time for questions to the Leader has now elapsed.